My name is Ethan Walker. I am 35 years old. A few weeks ago, I found out that my entire life of sacrifice, years of quietly keeping my parents afloat, meant nothing to them. Nothing at all. It started on an ordinary Saturday morning. My mother had a follow-up doctor's appointment, and I had promised to drive her because Dad doesn't like city traffic anymore. After the appointment, we went back to their house, a two-story place in the suburbs just outside Chicago, the same house I'd been covering the mortgage payments on for nearly 10 years. She asked me to help her sort through a drawer stuffed with old insurance papers and hospital bills. She always hated dealing with paperwork. I didn't mind. I thought it was just another one of those chores I'd quietly take on while my younger brother Ryan relaxed somewhere, pretending the world owed him comfort. As I sifted through the papers, I found a large white envelope marked Will and Estate Documents. At first I wasn't going to open it. It felt private, but then Mom saw me holding it and said, "Oh, don't worry, Ethan. Just make sure it's still in order." I slid the pages out, scanning through them quickly. The names jumped out at me before the words made sense. My parents, Ryan, but not me. Every line confirmed it. The house, the retirement savings, their accounts, even the car. Everything was to be left to Ryan. My name wasn't on a single page. Not one. I blinked, thinking maybe I missed something. Maybe there was a second page that mentioned me. But no. It was all Ryan. The air in the room shifted. I felt heat in my chest, like my heart had burst into flame. I looked at Mom. She was calmly folding another paper, not realizing my hands were shaking as I held their will. "Mom," I said slowly, "why is everything left to Ryan? Where am I in this?" She froze for just a moment, then forced a smile. "Oh, Ethan, don't be dramatic. You're fine. You have your job, your apartment, your savings. Ryan doesn't. We just want to make sure he's taken care of when we're gone." I stared at her, stunned. Taken care of? I've been taking care of all of you for years. Who do you think pays this mortgage? Who covered Dad's hospital bills last winter? Who's been sending Ryan money every time he can't pay his credit cards? She frowned like I was being unreasonable. "Ethan, you shouldn't throw those things in our faces. Family helps family. You've always been the responsible one. You don't need our help." I laughed. But it wasn't joy, it was sharp, bitter disbelief. "So, because I've been responsible, because I've been the one holding this family up, I get nothing. And Ryan, the one who's never held a steady job for more than a month, the one who wastes every dollar he touches, he gets everything." "See?" Dad walked in just then, holding a coffee mug. He heard the last part, and sighed heavily, as if I were the one making a scene. "Ethan, don't start. You've always been stable. You're smart, you have your career. Ryan, well, you know him, he's not like you. He needs the support more." I turned to him, my voice low, controlled, but edged with rage. "So I've been punished for being stable, for working hard, for supporting you. All the while Ryan gets rewarded for being lazy." Dad shrugged, sipping his coffee. "That's just how it is. We don't want him to struggle when we're gone." Something broke in me at that moment. Years of paying their bills, of picking up Ryan when he fell into debt, of sacrificing my own vacations, my own savings, my own dreams gone, erased. Not even worth a mention in their will. I stood there holding the papers, realizing I had been nothing but their workhorse, their safety net, their backup plan. I handed the will back to my mother. My hands steady now. My anger had cooled into something sharper, colder. "If that's how you feel," I said, "then don't expect another cent from me. Not for the mortgage. Not for groceries. Not for Ryan. You've made your choice. Live with it." Mom's eyes widened. "Ethan, don't talk like that. You can't just abandon us." Dad scowled. "You owe us, we raised you, we gave you everything. You can't turn your back on family." I almost laughed again, but instead I said quietly, "No, you turned your back on me. Remember that." And with that I grabbed my jacket and walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I left in silence, which I knew would cut deeper than shouting ever could. That night in my apartment, I sat in the dark thinking about every bill I had paid, every time I had bailed Ryan out. Every time I had said, "Don't worry, Mom, I'll cover it." I thought about the years I had believed I was being a good son, a good brother, and I realized it had never mattered. To them I wasn't family, I was a bank. And banks don't inherit, they just get used. So I opened my laptop. I logged into the mortgage account and canceled my automatic payments. I called the electric company and removed my card from their profile. I blocked Ryan's number. I poured myself a drink and sat back in my chair staring out at the Chicago skyline. For the first time in my life, I wasn't their provider. I wasn't their safety net. I was just me. And I swore with every ounce of my being that I would never again let them treat me like a doormat. They wanted to take care of Ryan. Let them, but they would do it without my money, without my help, without me, because I was done. The silence after I cut them off was strange at first. For years my phone had buzzed with little reminders of their needs. Mom asking me to send money for groceries. Dad hinting about the mortgage payment coming due. Ryan texting me at all hours with pathetic excuses about why he needed just a little loan. When that silence came, it almost felt wrong. Like the city itself had gone quiet. But it wasn't peace, it was the calm before the storm. The first bill cycle was when the storm started. They must have realized something was wrong when the mortgage company called them instead of me, asking about the missed payment. Then the power bill arrived unpaid. Then the credit card Ryan had been maxing out got declined at a bar, leaving him humiliated in front of his friends. I could almost imagine his red face, his temper boiling over, as he blamed everyone but himself. 2 weeks later, the calls began. First it was Mom. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Ethan, honey, there's been some mistake. The bank says the mortgage payment wasn't made. Could you check?" I leaned back in my chair at work, staring at the skyline out the window. My voice was calm, flat. "There's no mistake. I told you I'm done." There was silence on the other end, then a shaky laugh. "Don't be silly. You can't just stop. We need you. You made it clear you don't," I said, and hung up. After that, the tone shifted. The next call was Dad. And his voice wasn't soft. It was hard, angry. "Ethan, this isn't funny. You don't just walk away from your family. We raised you, we sacrificed for you. You owe us." I almost smiled. "I owe you nothing. You made your will. You made your choice. Ryan can take care of you now." His voice cracked with fury. "Ryan can't handle this. He's not like you." "Exactly," I said, and ended the call. Then came Ryan. He showed up at my apartment one evening, pounding on the door so hard the frame rattled. When I opened it, he pushed past me, storming into my living room like he owned the place. His face was red, his eyes wild. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Ethan? You can't just cut us off. Mom and Dad are struggling, and it's your fault." I folded my arms, blocking his way further in. "It's not my fault, Ryan. It's theirs. They decided you deserve everything and I deserve nothing. So congratulations, you're the man of the family now. Pay their bills." He stared at me, mouth open, like I'd spoken another language. "I don't have that kind of money. You know that. You've always helped. That's your role." I stepped closer, my voice low. "Not anymore. Get out." He shoved my shoulder, but I didn't move. I held his gaze until he realized he wasn't going to intimidate me. Finally he cursed and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. I thought maybe that would be the end of it, that they would finally realize I was serious. But I should have known better. People who live off others don't stop when the handouts dry up. They claw, they manipulate, they scheme. A week later I opened Facebook to find my mother's post pinned to the top of her page. It read, "It breaks my heart to share this, but our oldest son Ethan has abandoned us in our time of need. After all we've done for him, he refuses to help his aging parents. Please pray for us as we deal with this heartbreak." The comments poured in. Old neighbors, distant relatives, church friends, they all piled on, writing things like, "How could he be so selfish? Disgraceful. Children these days have no respect." I sat staring at the screen, my jaw clenched, heat crawling up my neck. They were painting me as a monster, erasing years of sacrifices with a single post. They were turning me into the villain. And Ryan, no doubt, was sitting beside them grinning while strangers called me cruel. But I didn't respond. Not yet. I saved the post, took screenshots and closed my laptop. This wasn't the time to strike. Cold revenge takes patience. Let them think they were winning. Let them think their smear campaign was working. The longer they thought I was silent, the sharper the blade would feel when I finally swung it. Meanwhile, their lives kept crumbling. The mortgage slipped another month unpaid. The bank sent warnings. Utilities were cut off for 3 days until they scraped together money to cover the minimum. Ryan, desperate and broke, tried working at a local warehouse but lasted less than a week before quitting. I heard from a cousin that he was back to begging friends for cash. I went about my life calmly. I went to work. I saw friends. I enjoyed dinners out, all without a single request tugging at my wallet. At night, though, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about how twisted it all was. Years of loyalty reduced to manipulation and lies. And beneath the hurt, a fire burned. If they wanted to paint me as selfish, if they wanted to make me the villain, then I would show them what happens when you push the quiet sun too far. The fallout had only begun. I thought the Facebook post would satisfy them for a while, that they'd get their pity points from friends and neighbors. But I underestimated how far desperation could push people. The truth was, their lives were unraveling faster than they could control, and when people like that lose their grip, they don't stop clawing. They double down, and their claws came straight for me. The first attack happened at my workplace. I had just come down to the lobby for lunch when I heard raised voices. At first I didn't recognize them. Then I did. My mother's sharp tone, my father's low grumble. They were standing at the reception desk, waving their arms, telling the receptionist that they needed to see me immediately. I froze where I stood, my heart pounding with embarrassment, as I saw other employees staring, whispering. Mom was loud enough for everyone to hear. Our son has abandoned us. We need to talk to him. He refuses to answer his phone. I walked over slowly, each step heavy with the weight of humiliation. You can't be here, I said firmly. This is my job. Dad leaned in, his voice dripping with anger. We wouldn't have to be here if you weren't ignoring your family. The receptionist's eyes darted between us nervously. Security guards approached. My mother's voice cracked into a wail. You can't just leave us to starve, Ethan. We're your parents. The words hit me like a knife, not because they were true but because they were calculated. She knew everyone in that lobby would hear it. She wanted me shamed in front of colleagues. She wanted me to break, but I didn't. I stood tall, met her eyes and said coldly, You made your will, you made your choice. Ryan is your future, not me. Remember? Then I turned to the guards. Please escort them out. The guards led them away. My mother sobbing dramatically, my father muttering curses under his breath. I felt every set of eyes in that lobby burn into me as I walked out the door. My jaw tight, my stomach churning. But inside, past the humiliation, there was something else. A strange satisfaction, because every time they pulled one of these stunts, they only handed me more proof of their manipulation. And I began collecting it all. I saved every voicemail, every manipulative text that pinged my phone at midnight, every Facebook post, every public spectacle. I bought a small camera and mounted it in my car's dashboard after Ryan started leaving nasty notes on my windshield. One note said, Cold bastard. Wait until everyone sees who you really are. Another said, You'll regret this, we'll ruin you. He didn't know the camera caught him every time. His face twisted in drunken anger. It wasn't long before the wider family noticed the tension. A cousin threw a summer barbecue, inviting everyone, thinking maybe it would smooth things over. I wasn't going to go, but something in me wanted to. I wanted to see them try their act in front of people who had no idea what had really been happening. When I arrived, it didn't take long. My mother cornered me near the picnic table, her voice raised just enough for everyone nearby to hear. Ethan, how could you turn your back on us? We're your family. You left us to suffer. Dad stood beside her, arms crossed, nodding, playing the role of the wronged parent. Ryan leaned against the cooler, smirking, waiting for me to crack. For a moment, the group of relatives nearby looked uncomfortable, glancing at me with questioning eyes. This was their trap, make me look heartless in public again. But I came prepared. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a neat folder. Inside were copies of bank transfers, receipts, bills, all with my name on them. Mortgage payments, hospital bills, grocery store payments, thousands upon thousands of dollars spanning over a decade. I held them up, my voice calm but loud enough for everyone around to hear. You say I turned my back on you. Let's talk about the years I paid your mortgage. The groceries I bought every month. The thousands I spent on Dad's medical bills. The money I handed Ryan when he blew through his credit. Every single time I came through. And what did I get? A will that leaves me nothing. Not a penny. Not a mention. You made your choice and now I'm making mine. The silence that followed was heavy. My mother's face drained of color. My father's jaw clenched. Ryan's smirk vanished. Around us relatives stared, their expressions shifting from judgment to shock to pity. But not for my parents. For me, one aunt reached out and touched my arm gently, whispering, "I had no idea, Ethan." Another cousin shook his head, muttering, "That's wrong. That's just wrong." For once I wasn't the villain, they were and they knew it. My parents sputtered, tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. The whispers started spreading right there at the barbecue. People looking at them not as victims but as manipulators who had bled their son dry and still wanted more. That night, my mother's Facebook post disappeared, but another one appeared in its place. This time it wasn't vague, it was venom. She wrote, "Ethan has turned cold, money has poisoned him. He thinks he can buy dignity by humiliating his family. He will regret treating us this way." I took a screenshot, smiled, and closed my laptop. Because the truth was, I wasn't humiliated. I wasn't broken. I was gathering every piece of their cruelty, every lie, every manipulation. And when the time came, I would use it all. They thought they were waging war against me with guilt and shame. But what they didn't know was that I was already 10 steps ahead, quietly stacking the evidence that would tear their image apart. They had painted me as selfish. Soon everyone would see the truth. And when that truth came out, there would be no going back. By the time autumn came, I had a mountain of proof. Voicemails that dripped with guilt and anger. Screenshots of late-night texts that swung between pleading and threats. Videos of Ryan sneaking around my car, stuffing notes under the wipers, spitting curses at me when he thought no one was watching. Photos of bills I had paid for years, all with my name and signature. I didn't know exactly when I would use it. But I knew the day was coming because every week they got louder, bolder, more reckless. And if there's one thing manipulators can't stand, it's silence. It all came to a head one evening when I got a knock at my apartment door. When I opened it, there stood my father, his face flushed, his voice already raised. "Enough of this, Ethan. You're going to talk to us right now." Behind him, my mother wrung her hands, her eyes darting nervously down the hall, and Ryan, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, smirked like he was about to win something. I didn't let them inside. I stood in the doorway, blocking them. "There's nothing left to say." Dad jabbed a finger at me. "You've embarrassed us in front of the family. You've made us look like fools. Do you know what people are saying?" "Yes," I said calmly. "They're saying the truth." My mother's voice cracked. "Ethan, please, we can work this out. Just help us like you used to. We'll make adjustments later." Ryan barked a laugh. "You're not going to let Mom and Dad suffer just because you're throwing a tantrum. You've always been uptight, Ethan. Just hand over the money like before." The way he said it, like I was some machine, some endless wallet, something inside me snapped. Not in anger but in finality. That was the moment I knew it was time. No more silence. No more letting them control the story. I stepped back, closed the door and locked it. I could hear them pounding on the wood, shouting, but I didn't answer. Instead, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and began to write. The post took hours. I poured every detail into it, every receipt, every transfer, every sacrifice I had made. I told the story of years of financial support, of covering mortgages, medical bills, debts. I explained how I had discovered their will, leaving me nothing, giving everything to Ryan. I attached photos and screenshots, redacted for privacy but undeniable in truth. I didn't write with anger. I wrote with precision, with cold clarity, with the voice of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to expose. When it was done, I read it twice. Then I hit post. At first silence. Then the flood. Comments rolled in within minutes. Friends from high school, old neighbors, co-workers, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. "This is unbelievable. Ethan, I had no idea. You've been carrying them all this time." Support poured in like a tide, stronger with each passing hour. People who had once believed my parents' lies now saw the truth laid bare in black and white. My phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from relatives apologizing for judging me, friends telling me I was brave. Even distant family friends writing, "We always suspected Ryan was spoiled. But this is shocking." And then came the other side. My parents, Ryan. Their rage exploded online. My mother posted, "Don't believe everything you read. Ethan is twisting the truth to make us look bad. My father pardoned under my post. Ungrateful. That's all you are. We sacrificed for you, and this is how you repay us. Ryan went further, ranting in all caps. You're a liar. You've always been jealous of me. Everyone knows it. But the difference was clear. They had words. I had proof. And proof speaks louder than any denial. The more they fought, the worse they looked. People started replying to them directly, challenging them, asking if Ethan's lying, then why does he have all these receipts? Others pointed out Ryan's history, his string of failed jobs, his debt. The community they had relied on for sympathy was turning against them. Days later, I heard from an aunt that Mom had broken down crying at church when people stopped speaking to her, whispering behind her back instead. Dad had lashed out at a neighbor who asked about the will, and Ryan, humiliated, deleted his social media after losing a handful of friends who told him they were done with his leeching. Meanwhile, I felt something I hadn't in years: lightness. Freedom. The weight I had carried was gone, replaced with a cold, sharp clarity. They could no longer twist the story. The truth was out, and the truth had teeth. One night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the city lights, scrolling through the messages of support. People told me I was brave for standing up, for breaking free. But I didn't feel brave. I felt cold. I felt steady. For years I had let them feed on me, let them define me. But now, for the first time, I had cut off their supply and stripped away their mask. And as I closed my phone, I realized something else. This wasn't just revenge. This was justice. And justice, when delivered cold, lasts longer than any fire of anger ever could. The reckoning had come, and it was only the beginning of their downfall. After I posted the truth, everything changed. It wasn't sudden like a light switch. It was slower, like watching cracks spread through glass until the whole pane shatters. My parents and Ryan kept trying to push their version of the story, but the damage was already done. People didn't believe them anymore. They weren't the poor, abandoned parents of their posts. They were exposed manipulators, liars, users, and for the first time, they had no one left to lean on. The bills piled up quickly. Without my money covering the mortgage, the bank grew impatient. Letters turned into warnings. Warnings turned into foreclosure threats. I didn't need to ask what was happening. Word got around easily enough. An uncle mentioned that the house was in trouble. A neighbor texted me saying Ryan had been spotted arguing with the mailman about overdue notices. And one night, as I drove past their street out of curiosity, I saw the big red foreclosure notice taped to the front door. I parked a block away and just watched. The house I had kept afloat for years, the house I had poured thousands of dollars into, was now collapsing without me. Mom sat on the porch, head in her hands. Dad paced the yard, cursing into his phone. Ryan stomped out with a half-empty beer bottle, yelling about how this isn't fair. None of them saw me, and I didn't want them to. It was enough just to watch, to witness the result of their choices. I could have stepped in. I had the money. I could have saved them again. But the thought didn't even tempt me. They had chosen to reward laziness and entitlement, to erase my years of sacrifice. Saving them now would only prove they were right, that no matter what they did, I'd always come back, that I'd always be their doormat. But that Ethan no longer existed. The final break came when Ryan tried calling me again. I had blocked him months earlier, but he found a way through a different number. His voice was shaky, desperate. Ethan, look, I know things got messed up, but you can't just let us lose everything. Mom and Dad are losing the house. I don't have anywhere to go. Please, just help us this one last time. We're family. I waited a long moment before answering. You're right, Ryan. We are family, and family should never treat each other the way you all treated me. Family shouldn't use someone until they're dry and then throw them away. Family shouldn't write someone out of their lives and expect them to still pay the bills. You chose your path. Now live with it. He started to protest, but I hung up. Then I blocked the number for good. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. The house was foreclosed 2 months later. My parents moved into a shabby rental on the edge of town, smaller, older, nowhere near the comfort they were used to. Ryan drifted between couches, still drinking, still blaming everyone else. Every so often I'd hear a rumor, a shouting match in a grocery store, a job he lost after only a week, another fight with a landlord. It didn't matter anymore. They were ghosts of a life I had buried. Meanwhile, I moved forward. I took a promotion at work, The kind of role I would have never accepted before because I was too busy keeping their lives stable. With the extra money I didn't pay their bills. I bought something for myself. A condo in Denver, high up with wide windows overlooking the mountains. The air there felt different. Clean, free. The first night I moved in, I stood on the balcony with a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the sun sink behind the peaks. For years my life had been tied to theirs. My choices tangled in their needs. My money spent patching up their mistakes. But now, every dollar I earned was mine. Every decision I made was mine. For the first time I was free. And the coldest part of my revenge was that I didn't even need to lift a hand to destroy them. All I had to do was stop saving them. All I had to do was let them live in the world they had built. The one where Ryan was king, where I didn't matter. Without me, their kingdom crumbled to dust. A few months later, Ryan tried one last time. He sent an email long and rambling saying he was sorry, that things had gotten out of control, that he just needed a little help to get back on his feet. He even tried to guilt me by saying Mom's health was failing and Dad was too stressed. I read it once, slowly, then closed it. I didn't reply, instead I archived it and never opened it again. Silence was my final answer. Because sometimes the sharpest revenge isn't rage, isn't shouting, isn't even exposing someone. Sometimes it's simply walking away, cutting the chain that kept you tied to them, and letting them choke on their own choices. I wasn't their provider anymore. I wasn't their scapegoat. I wasn't their invisible son. I was Ethan Walker, and for the first time I belonged to myself. The city lights sparkled in the distance as the mountains darkened into shadow. I raised my glass, took a slow sip, and let the peace wash over me. They had wanted me to be the selfish one, and maybe I finally was. But selfish never felt so good. And in that cold, quiet moment, I knew the truth. I had won.